It is so easy to feel alone as a dentist, even though you are surrounded by people. I was at my dental practice yesterday, and it's just so easy to feel lonely as a dentist. You can have an amazing team, front desk team members, awesome assistants, hygienists, but sometimes you're the only person that is licensed to do the thing to move things forward. I'm here with my awesome friend, Dr. Peter Bolden, founder of Bulletproof Dental Practice, and he shares so much wisdom out there. As I would call you, what do you say, an enthusiastic, but at times exhausted multi-practice owner? Is that a fair way to describe you, Peter?
Of course. I mean, of course, isn't that kind of the plight of the way it always is?
I always say dentistry is 50% awesome, 50% annoying, and 100% exhausting. I don't know how math works, but I feel that that's it.
Yes.
So I want you to kind of let's just start with your summit. And we're going to talk more about Bulletproof. It's in August. I'm going to be a speaker. I'm so excited for it. Someone has never been there before. Why should they text BP to 215-543-6454? Get our discount code and be ready to come to Vegas. Tell me about that.
All right. So I'll break it out. There are kind of two reasons really, Paul, why I think like coming to the summit will be transformative, not only to you, but your team. If you can, we really encourage people to bring their team to this, because I think alignment of your team is a big way to solve problems or impediments in your practice. Okay. The second thing is we all got accustomed to the Zooms of the world when during COVID and stuff like that. And it was like, oh, well, I can learn it online. It's kind of BS, honestly. You learn better when you fully immerse yourself in a learning environment, right? And I always give the analogy to people like, it's like putting a bunch of batteries in a room, and then all of a sudden you kind of connecting the dots, and it takes the 12-volt battery and it kind of makes this like a room of batteries, and you gain energy and ideas and enthusiasm from the people that you're collaborating with, who are all kind of, across the nation, equally aligned to grow their practices. So, and then the other thing, the last thing I will say is that in the summit, we are really fully focused on what is called the Bulletproof Pathway, which is really just designed, doesn't matter where you are in the life cycle of a dentist, practice owner, associate, wherever, it's that we all kind of follow these same paths, and it goes over marketing and how to build, and leadership and retention and referral, all the things of the life cycle of a dentist. And you get exposed to all these things because dentistry is not that complicated, but it is complex. It is complex.
I like that. It's a really good way to put it. I worked with my amazing dad for 11 years before he sadly passed away. He's such a secure, awesome guy. I always say he took helping people seriously, but he didn't take himself too seriously. And at his 41st year, when he looked at my brother and I, we had the two practices, we had specialists, and he just said, listen, being a dentist was always frustrating, patience, team, but it has become complex to run a dental practice, much more so than when I started. I just think we should honor that and share with practice owners that, it's awesome and challenging, and people like you guys have their back. And, this summit, before we move on to Bulletproof, what are the dates, right? And people can definitely text BP to 215-543-6454. My team will drop the link and our discount code, which I appreciate you made. We love nachos. Thanks, Lacey. I like that discount code. What are the dates on this?
It's August 10th and 11th, I believe. 10th and 11th, or 11th and 12th. I always get a little bit turned around, but it's that weekend, that same weekend in it's at the Wynn, which is crazy, Paul, because if you try to book the Wynn right now for that weekend in Vegas, it's about $800, right? So we have a room code, which gets it like our room block is insane. It's like $250 per night.
That's awesome.
So anyway,
you're doing what dentists love. You're getting them a deal. Dentists don't want to give a deal on their crown preps. They're $2,000 works of art, but they would prefer a deal on literally everything else in their life. So, I mean, I know it is something that is reinforced many times. I tell people I don't repeat myself or reinforce myself. The what's your why? You and Craig started this Bulletproof practice thing. What does your thing do on a day-to-day basis to help dentists with the nacho spirit? Increase success, decrease stress, and reduce crying inside. What do you guys do with this program?
I mean, I think it's very aligned with that. I think we want to, look, Craig and I got to where we are, not because we figured it all out on our own, Paul. We stood on the giants of other people, had great mentors. And I think we're in that next wave of our career where we've done well in dentistry. We've got complex ecosystems, but you feel compelled to kind of look back and pull the other people up and help and show them all the pain and the ass kicking that we got along the way, to say like, hey, do this, don't do this. And Craig and I we come from kind of totally different schools of thought. Meaning that he's more of the, psychological and the vision and stuff. And I'm more of the systematic process.
Yeah.
So we're a good yin and yang, because some people resonate with either one of us, be like, oh, I like what he said. So it's a good mix. We have a good mix and that's why I think dentistry is the most beautiful profession in the world, because even though he and I took very different paths, circuitous paths to get where we are, they were different. And so it's not just like this cookie cutter way to get to successful journey. Dentistry, I think you can go a lot of different ways. You can be a strong leader or a strong systematizer like I am, and get to where you want to go. And it's just a cool profession. There's just no rules, so to speak.
Yeah. I always really share that with all of the challenges facing dentistry, and there are challenges, the ability for a professional to be able to work full-time, part-time, 1 day a week, and whatever that looks like. Even my dad's partner, right? He sold the practice to me, and then he was working 3 days, down to 2 days, down to 1 day. And there are just some really creative ownership opportunities, which is kind of what I want to ask you about next. When you were in Philadelphia, you talked about this. Back in the day, they said everybody would hang out a shingle. Apparently, everyone went to a place, Peter, they bought a shingle and a hammer, and they said, this is my place, right? And now they say you can't just hang out a shingle. So I missed that day, right? So you talked about, and I work with DSOs, I work with group practices. I am a group practice. I work with startup consultants. There's so many creative opportunities to be an owner. For someone who doesn't really understand this, what's fractional ownership look like? I know you have these things inside of your organizations. I'd love for you to share with my audience, as someone who owns 7 practices, what that means to you.
Yeah. You mean like actual buy-in opportunities or?
Yeah.
Yes. So I created rather than kind of like try to build up to a critical mass and then hand the keys over to a DSO, which may or may not destroy the vision. My vision was more, let me onboard people who are going to help take this pie and build it bigger based on the vision that I created. And that based on kind of the patient experience, like the shirt.
Yeah.
That's our subline and our logo. Right. I didn't want that to get disrupted. So I think there's a good expression, like no one washes a rental car. Right. And so meaning that sometimes people who come in and out of your practice don't care about, that there's this patient experience is bad, or there's trash in the corner. Someone else will get that. But when you have owners and true people who have skin in the game, I think it just changes that. And meaning that you have an ownership mentality. That's a true thing. And I would like to hear what you have to say about this, Paul. I see a lot of associateships fail because the founding principal of the practice says like, yeah, we'll get there one day. We'll get there one day. And they hold off kind of this partnership as this thing that's never really going to happen. They keep moving the goal line. And then the associate gets fed up and is like, what the heck, man? I want to chip on the table. And the dentist is so scared to either kind of quote sell part of the practice because they're looking at, well, shit, this pie is only 9 inches large. How, if I cut a piece off, then I only have, less pie, as opposed to thinking, let's just grow the pie to being a giant pie.
I love this question. And I think, I think there's owners would do this with good intentions, but don't understand math. There's those people, right? They just do it with, oh yeah, one day someone's going to buy into my solo practice that's done 1.2 million for the past decade, and I have no strategy to make that 1.9 million. Or other times they just don't know what it means to have a partner. And some of that can be just as about their emotions as is about their P&L. One of the questions I would tell people to ask when someone says, hey, there's partnership opportunities here, my question would be to say, oh, that's really great. When do you see yourself buying another location, right? Because I have friends that have done really well, probably similar to what you do, where they had a flagship practice, then them and their associate are 50-50 in another practice, and then they do this, and they have a real strategy for expansion. So I think that this happens frequently. I also think, through Job Connect, I coach owners. I'm like, don't even bring up owning too soon if you've literally never had a partner. Why don't you just try an associate, right? I mean, there's what I can share as someone who does Dentist Job Connect daily, one of the cool things about dentistry, Peter, is it's very portable, right? There are people moving across the country with their dental degree because their spouse got a better job somewhere in business. So before you get all worked up, Paul, find me someone who wants to buy into this practice in Syracuse, New York. Just test, not guess, I say, what it feels like. And I think what you do with your associates is really brilliant. Tell me this, because dentists, there's a lot of negativity out there. You say, oh, I'm going to buy in 30% of this practice, and say, never do that. Own it 100% or nothing, right? Where do you see some of these advantages, or where as an owner can people rely on your systems to make things a little bit less stressful than if they were owning 100% of a practice?
Yeah. So, you always kind of talk about on your forum, essentially, that dentistry is a lonely place. And I believe it is, right? It shouldn't just be about, how many dollars and, zeros and ones I can accumulate in my account, right? Because dentistry, that can burn you out. Meaning if you're operating on an island by yourself in your own kind of echo chamber, like that's not really that much fun. I think that's one of the factors of burnout. So getting someone on board that can help row that boat with you on the other side of the boat and help kind of move forward is really empowering, right? It kind of brings new energy to your practice. It gives sustainability to your career, because then potentially you're going to find someone. For instance, I only really did cosmetic dentistry in my career. I do not practice any longer, but I only did cosmetic dentistry. But it wasn't always that way. Meaning there were some things that I didn't want to do in the practice anymore, in the practice of dentistry, that there were associates or future partners that were going to love to do that procedure. And so we helped each other out, right? So the last thing I'll say on this is that for whatever reason, partnership, we get it all wrong in dentistry, in my opinion. It doesn't have to be a 50-50, meaning you have a founding dentist and then you have an associate who says, I want to buy in. And we always have just assumed it's like, I'm going to buy in and become half. Right. It doesn't have to be that way. The fractional ownership model is a little bit better because you're not diluting 50% of your practice in one fell swoop. You're lowering the entry price to get someone as a chip on the table, right? That ownership mentality. And then you're preserving bandwidth for future partners down the line, right? So I designed a system, and I teach this in our Bulletproof Mastermind. It's really kind of selling fractional partnerships. I mean, and I've diluted down. I've sold, 7 partnerships over the time. And so, it works great. It's worked great.
And that's why I think, kind of to just bring the full circle of some of the real creativity inside of dentistry, whether, the DSOs represent creative things, right? You might agree with them or not. You can start your own practice with Ideal Practice as a sponsor and just do that. You can be a partner. You can be a fresh. We should just embrace that the business models inside of what we have to offer are super interesting. And that some people want to own 20% of something as opposed to 0% or 100%. There's also a tremendous amount of vulnerability in the solo G. I would not be here today if my dad didn't have a partner, Peter. There's no way I would have been able. I would solo GP life, no disrespect, people do it. I saw my dad getting coverage for vacation. I saw him be able to do sports. So I just said, oh, my dad works with another person that does dentistry, and there's value there.
Here's the other thing I see too. If you find, and I give this term in our masterminds and stuff, I always say thoroughbred. When you find that thoroughbred dentist and you know who it is, it's a racehorse, someone who wants to absolutely crush it. If you do not give them, or at least offer the pathway to partnership to them, they will go become your competition. Full stop.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to make it about putting golden handcuffs or that, but why not use that power? Why not put that thoroughbred on your carriage, so to speak, and really kind of race forward? You don't want to miss those opportunities because
and you lose out on someone who can do really good clinical services. As you talked about this, you were in Philly, we have wonderful restaurants, and some restaurant groups keep their chefs in a group. And then sometimes someone splinters off and opens up their one chef restaurant. And I bet you that group practice chef was probably like, I probably missed the boat here because I lost someone out of 10 chef. I don't have them anymore. They're doing their own thing. And yes, they're kind of my competition, but it's a kind of sad to me. And I think, dentists work. I mean, how many dentists work in your organization? Total?
13, 14.
Yeah. So, I mean, you guys have a group of people, your friends, right? You might talk about cases? Are they able to rely on each other for
100%.
clinical challenges and practice management challenges?
Well, politics inside the office for
No,
sure.
not politics. No, more like when they have challenges, can they
Political
text each other? No, can they text each other about stuff? And
Of course, there's group
yeah,
threads, there's an Invisalign group thread in my practice, and there's a founding group thread, there's all the things, an implant thread, so that they're texting, it's support, it's what do you think about this case? It's collaborative. And that's where I see I don't think dentistry has many blind spots. Like I said, I just think it's the greatest profession. I think that the environment of like going to dental school and then doing something some way by yourself for 30 years in your own echo chamber is probably really dangerous. So whether you're in a study group or a mastermind or you're onboarding new kind of future partners, I think that's the mindset to be in, rather than like, I got it all figured out, I went to dental school. That's probably dangerous.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I'm so excited to keep doing more things. And you guys had me on your podcast. I got one of the most amounts of feedback. I saw you on the Bulletproof podcast and you labeled it ABC to FLA, always be connecting to feel less alone. Yes. Can't wait to come out there in August and hang, learn, laugh, feel less annoyed. Please check out Bulletproof Practice. What Dr. Peter, Dr. Craig do is phenomenal. Come to this summit. You get to hang out with amazing people. And just, as you learn just as much from the lecture stage as you do at the happy hours and the coffees, Peter. Tell people about why should a young dentist stop and say, I don't know this thing right now, but I want to sign up and put myself in Vegas by myself. How do you learn just as much outside the lecture room as you do inside of it?
Yes. So okay. So sometimes people will reach out and say, look, I'm not really ready for the stuff you're going to talk about and what Bulletproof talks about, right? I'm not a practice owner, or I'm only doing $500,000 a year, whatever it is, right? And I always say that the earlier you get, like we have dental students that come, and I am so envious of them,
right?
Because they are literally getting the keys to like kind of the awareness and the acumen to be like, like, for example, a plane, right, that takes off in Atlanta, where I live, right? If it's heading towards Los Angeles and it's off by 1 degree, it ends up in Tijuana, right? Right. So figuring out those 1 degree little shifts and hearing things from experienced dentists. Let's say you're a young dentist or someone who doesn't feel quote unquote qualified to be there yet. Just creating that awareness will save you tremendous amounts of pain, tremendous amounts of money, and you'll probably be farther along in your career because you got to stand on the giants of some of the in the room, some of the giants in the room. But back to your point, yes, a lot of the learning isn't from the stage. It's actually in the side conversations, or in the pool, or it's in the bar, or it's in the, hey, can I get your number? And you form relationships. And now you actually have an advocate for yourself, for you rather. That's where the magic happens, right? And then amplify that by not just thinking about you yourself as the dentist. Think about bringing a hygienist and putting them in a room to cross-pollinate ideas with master hygienists.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And then your team gets to kind of put, and so we have tracks designed to align everybody, Paul, towards the common goal, but the message is based on who you are, right? So hygiene has more of a different, obviously they have a different MO and a different strategies and different things and different KPIs. And the team leads have different things, and dentists have things as the owner, as kind of the CEO.
I also think, Peter, you're just going to see what's necessary to run a practice, and all these people, whether you own one solo practice, that's amazing. You're going to need to have these people fill these roles in your team. Well, I appreciate all that you're doing. Please check out the Bulletproof Dental Practice Summit. What is your podcast that people want to check out yours? Because it's truly awesome.
So it's the Bulletproof Dental Practice podcast. I think you can just go in there and search that on iTunes, or you connect to it from our website is bulletproofdentalpractice.com, and it'll connect you from there. So yeah, thanks, Paul. Awesome. I appreciate the awareness, and hey, congratulations to 50,000.
50,000. We started with one failed NBA superstar, me, and we are now at 50,000. Thanks so much, Peter.
You're welcome, bud.